episode 7, Bird Control. It's your boy Icon, and we're going over some DC TV. This episode was very cool how it played out because I'm a huge fan of time travel. I love anything time travel related. And to see how they put this thing together from the first 6 episodes up until now, I thought was really dope. But, and then there's some other side stuff that happened too. But it was also confusing. There were a lot of things about the episode I was like, huh? But let's just dive into it. So this episode starts. It takes us. We're paralleling here. We're going back in the day, to the past, and we're still currently in the present. And we're paralleling both situations. Rita originally, when she stole the time machine, she went to 1917. And, she lost her memory. She didn't remember who she was. But apparently she stayed in 1917 because when this episode picks up, it's 1949 now. So 30 years have gone by and Rita's still with them for 30 years. And I thought that was very interesting. So it takes us to Madame Rouge, where, it's 1949, and she's still evaluating talent because remember, in 1917, she evaluated the talent for the Bureau of Normalcy or whatever, and she was marking people whether or not they were weapons or whether or not, they were harmless. So there was this one guy in particular, this really nerdy, geeky kid. He had the power to make objects he sees on paper come to life. So she marked him down as a weapon. And then Rita went over to her, and Rita was just like, oh, that's just a boy, why would he go out there and be a weapon? And then she was just like, oh, it's for the greater good. And then Rita even told her, she said that in their secret pocket dimension hideout, in the Sisterhood of Dada hideout, Rita said, she was like, you haven't been around for a while now. We would love to see you. You don't come by anymore. Everybody's worried about you. And she was like, oh, I'm just doing what I have to do for the greater good. Come to find out, what she was doing was the government wanted Rita, the guy with the bike, the Asian girl, the other white girl, and the invisible guy. The government wanted them to go out into the field and be a part of the war because I believe there was a war going on at that time, and they wanted them to take part in the war. But because those were Madame Rouge's friends, she kept passing them over because the guy even said, he was like, every time we evaluate certain people of whether or not they're good for combat duty, he said, you always pass these specific 6-7 people over, and they wanted to know why. And I said, but she was trying to protect them this whole time, but in order for her to protect them, she had to throw other people to the wolves, and then she also had to separate herself from the rest of that gang, so it wouldn't arouse some suspicion or anything. But the others didn't know that, obviously. So they're trying to, and even then, over the course of 30 years, the rest of the Sisterhood basically lost their way. Everybody except Rita and the invisible guy, because over the course of 30 years, the two of them, fell in love and became a couple and became an item. The rest of the gang was just like, oh, what are we really doing? They had this whole conversation where they were taking votes on whether or not to overthrow their oppressors. And, and she said, and the Rita was like, every time we take this vote, we always, it always ends in, a negative vote. And then they were just like, yeah, but maybe now's the time to strike. Now's the time for us to take over, because they said that the Sisterhood of Dada was supposed to change the world. And then she was like, yo, what? The black dude said, he was like, yo, what have we actually changed? He said, all we're doing is just he said, we're being complacent. He said that, we're put in the situation, we're mopping, we're cleaning or whatever. Even Madame Rouge said that to Rita. She said that you've been working in the mailroom for 30 years. And she said, you're perfectly fine with that. She's like, you have no desire to do anything else. And the black dude was saying, he was like, yo, we don't even, he said, we've gone complacent and we're not even fighting. He was like, how are we making the world a better place? There have been holocausts, there have been wars, there have been diseases, there have been plagues, and we just sit here in our comfortable little pocket dimension and we don't do anything. Rita and her boyfriend were trying to get everybody to laugh again, and they made 2 masks of themselves, whereas one was a mask with Rita's blob face, and the other was the guy. So both of them swapped masks, and when the guy put the blob mask on, I was like, holy shit. The episode when they went to the afterlife that had that Harry Potter gang, that detective gang, that guy with the weird face, with the weird messed up face, that recognized Rita and was talking to Rita and was having a conversation with Rita, and Rita didn't know who he was, who he was. That was her boyfriend from the past, who after he, we'll get to that in a second, but, but who after he died, he ended up in in that purgatory place. But Rita couldn't remember him because she hadn't gotten to that point yet in time in her life. So what happens is, so fast forward now, the whole group is hanging out. Like I said, they've decided that, they're going to stand up and fight, and they're going to overthrow the bureau, and they're going to go out there and try to inflict real change in the world. And then at that moment, Madame Rouge, she came in, and then everybody was happy to see her. They were like, oh my God, we haven't seen you in so long. They were hugging her and everything. And then she just was just like, oh, I'm going to miss this, with all of you, because she let the government get to her. The Bureau finally got to her, and they convinced her to make the Sisterhood of Dada go out into the war and fight the war for them and be soldiers. And then there was a moment where the soldiers had got all of them down on their knees, and Madame Rouge was just going down the line, stamping them like weapon, weapon, stamping all of them weapon. And then she was just like, oh, like everybody. And then Rita was like, oh, you betrayed us, like you did this. How could you do this to us? And then she was just like, I'm doing what's necessary. And then like they were actually going to shoot Rita because Rita stood up. And then she was just like, back on your knees, Rita. They were calling her Bendy. They're like, back on your knees, Bendy. And she was like, no. And then right before they shot her, her boyfriend jumped in the way while he still had the blob mask on, and he got shot, and then he died. And then because he died, that's how he ended up in in purgatory. And then Rita eventually finds him later when she goes there, like in the future. So and then after he died, Rita basically did she turned into jelly, and then she squeezed through like a hole in the floor, and Rita dipped, and she was the one that got away. The Sisterhood of Dada after that, the Bureau forced them, to be soldiers and to do tasks for them and to do missions for them, and they worked for the government for over 70 years. Rita, I'm assuming at some point she liberated them, and they went back into the mist, and now they're plotting their revenge on Madame Rouge because she's the one that sold them out. Now, for the rest of the gang, once again, every single character is going through their own individual thing. Larry... So it turns out that the thing that was in Larry's body, it wasn't a negative baby spirit, which I thought it was. It was actually a parasite tumor, and he spit it out. Madame Rouge knows that the Sisterhood of Dada is coming for her. And because she's in the house, she was trying to tell the Doom Patrol, she was like, oh, if they're coming for me, they're coming for all of us. So she was trying to recruit everybody and get everybody on her side. Larry couldn't do it because he was too busy dealing with, with the parasite monster. And then Madame Rouge was just like, well, go outside and burn it, and then he went outside to try to burn it. And then he had a change of heart. He tried to give it food and tried to give it a blanket. And then eventually, I don't know what he did with it, but he eventually ended up coming back to the house. I assume Larry brought it back into the house with him based on how he was acting. Cliff, he was getting cursed out by Jane because Cliff had sold a lot of people's stuff, just so he can get money to do his online shenanigans. One of the persons whose stuff that he sold was Jane's record collection, and she was cursing him out and letting him have it. She got so mad at him, she dropped him off at his daughter's house along with the baby, and Cliff tried to be there. He tried to play it off. He was like, oh, I just came to visit. And then he was just like, oh, I'll watch the baby for you guys, and you guys can go out on a date and blah, blah, blah. And the girlfriend, his daughter's girlfriend, peeped that his hand was still trembling, and she knew he still wasn't okay. But, they still went out anyway. And then when they came back, he got a little bit overwhelmed. He almost burnt the house down, but everything was all right. He was just a little off. And then, he went back into the garage and he started going online, doing those pop-up things and talking to the cam girls and everything, because Cliff was kind of coming unhinged. Jane went to go see Kay. And when Jane went to the underground to go see Kay, Kay was crying. And then when Jane asked her, yo, what happened? She was like, yo, somebody stole my bike. And I thought it was funny because she stole that bike first. But she was like, somebody stole my bike. So Jane went, and then she was like, which one of you motherfuckers stole her bike? And then they were just like, and then the weird girl with the black dress, she was like, oh, whoever took it should have thrown it down the well. And I was like, when do you have guts? So Jane was just like, whoever did it, I'm gonna fuck him up. And then, the psychiatrist was like, oh, Jane. She was just like, oh, this is what we need to do. She was like, we need to protect. She's like, we need protection, and the girl can't be allowed to go to topside. We need to keep her in her room, And then Jane was just like, well, what are you talking about? Because she said that the girl's okay. The girl is very well protected. And then that's when the psychiatrist was like, well, who's gonna protect us? And when she said that, Jane kind of paused, like, oh, I see what's happening now. Because what it is, the psychiatrist basically convinced all the other personas that the reason why Jane shouldn't let the girl go out and have a life of her own and try to rebuild her damaged, psyche is because they're afraid that if the girl eventually does, go back to normal or get some sort of normalcy, they'll be irrelevant, and then they're going to fade away and they're going to die. So they're doing, basically for them, it's self-preservation at this point, which is why they're trying to keep the girl scared and locked up in the closet. So there'll always be a use for them and they don't have to get kicked to the wayside. So then when Jane realized that, she went back to go talk to the girl. And then she told Kay, she was just like, hey, I found your bike. It was just a misunderstanding. And then Kay was just like, you fucking liar. We both know it's a lie. And I was just like, yeah, what happened to you? And and then, Jane was shocked. Like, hell, I was shocked because I was like, yeah, this girl just went from nice sweet child to like, hell beast, like just like that. Cyborg now, he ended up going into the doctor to talk about getting the synthetic skin. And then when the doctor told him that she can do it and it's a 24-hour procedure and, he can get it taken care of as quickly as possible, she told him, she said that, listen, before you make this decision, you should talk to a loved one about it because that's what, she's like, she said that's what she encourages everybody to do when they go through something like this. She said, even if you've made up your mind, you should still talk to somebody you care about it first. So he called Ronnie. And when he called Ronnie, he told her, that he was trying to get synthetic skin and remove all his metal parts. She said he was stupid because she was just like, oh, I thought you wanted change. And then he was like, yeah, but you're the one that told me to start thinking for myself. And then he was confused because he was like, yo, I thought you'd be happy that I was going to do this. And then she was like, no, because you said you wanted to be a hero and a champion for the people. If you remove all your metal parts, you won't be able to be a champion for the people. He was like, yeah, but I'm not happy being a robot. So then she said, you got to pick. She said, do you want to help people or do you want to be happy? And then that's when he kind of paused. But then he made his decision because in the next scene, he was right on the table and he was ready to get the surgery. So at this point now, for each one of them, when Cliff was in the garage watching his cam porn, the Sisterhood of Dada's smoke went into the garage. When Cyborg was on the operating table, the Dada smoke went in, to the operating table. When Jane was in front of like Kay's room, the same thing. The smoke went in there and it sucked her up in there. And then when Larry came back into the house, Madame Rouge was just like, how did you get in the house? He was like, I came through the front door. And then she was like, did you lock the door behind you? He was like, why would I do that? And then the smoke got into the house and it sucked up Madame Rouge and it sucked up Larry. Because Madame Rouge actually tried to dip at one point, but the Sisterhood wouldn't let her leave. So then it brought the Doom Patrol to a room. Madame Rouge was there as well. And then she was just like, this room looks oddly familiar. And then that's when it paralleled because the room that they were in was the same room that the Sisterhood of Dada used to hang out at the pocket dimension. They were in the pocket dimension that they used to hang out in back in the 1917s and 1949. The Sisterhood of Dada forced the Doom Patrol to replay the moment where Madame Rouge made all of them get on their knees and then sold them out. And then Madame Rouge in present time, she was slowly getting her memories back and she was walking up to Cliff and then she was like, weapon, Cyborg weapon, Jane weapon. And then at that moment, it hit her and then she got her memories back and she remembered who she was. The last person that she got up to was Jane. And then, Jane was in Rita's role back in 1949. And then they had put like a taser or a gun in Madame Rouge's hand. And then when she walked up to Jane and she said weapon, then the same blob guy, the invisible guy who had the blob mask on, he jumped in front of Jane. And then when he pulled the mask off, it was Rita under the mask. So basically what happened was Rita went back in time. Rita was present in 2021. She steals the time machine. She goes back in time to 1917. She stayed there. From 1917 through 1949, and then even after Madame Rouge betrayed her, Rita somehow escaped. She busted the Sisterhood of Dada out of whatever prison, the Bureau had in store for them. And the entire Sisterhood of Dada from that moment plotted their revenge on Madame Rouge, which means that Rita was existing in two places at the same time in present time. Because there was Rita that was with the Doom Patrol who hadn't time traveled yet. And then there was the Rita that already lived through all that and she was just waiting. Rita was basically waiting for her original self to go back in time so she can reveal herself, because again there were two Ritas in present day. And so then like when she pulled the thing off, they snatched up every single person who was in the room and brought them outside to a bird cage. And this is the part where I got extremely confused. We saw the guy, like her boyfriend, like her lover or whatever, we saw him in hell or in purgatory in the Dead Patrol episode. But according to Rita and according to the Sisterhood of Dada, there was a bird cage that had an egg in it. The egg hatched, and when the egg hatched, that guy came out of the egg, and it was just his head with wings on it. And I was just like, and then Rita said to Madame Rouge, she said that you can bring him back. You have the power to bring him back. I guess she was like, you just have to admit that you betrayed us and that you were wrong. And I'm like, I don't understand how she was supposed to bring him back. I don't understand like how he's still alive, how he exists, and if that was him and if he's still alive, why is he in purgatory in the Dead Patrol episode? That whole thing confused me. But then Madame Rouge, she has her memories back now. She was just like, she was like, oh, I did the right thing. She said that I helped you people. I was there for you. She's like, because of me, you became warriors, you became soldiers or whatever. And she's like, I don't apologize for shit. But Rita desperately needed her to repent, I guess, so she can save the guy. But Madame Rouge refused to do it. And then the egg ended up hatching. It broke into pieces. And then like these 50 million birds came out of nowhere. And then while all the birds were flying around, Madame Rouge herself turned into a bird and she flew away and escaped amongst all the other birds. Because in the beginning, Madame Rouge kept saying over and over and over, I'm a bird, I'm a bird, I'm a bird, I'm a bird. And I guess that's because she has the ability to transform into a bird. So that, like I said, that was very weird as well. The episode is called Bird Patrol, but after Madame Rouge dipped, then Rita said to the Sisterhood of Dada, they were just like, oh, come on, there are other ways to do something. And then Cliff was like, do what? And then the Asian girl was like, we're taking over the world once, like we're gonna dominate, or they basically just like, we coming for our revenge. And then they all disappeared. And then for some reason, those 50 million birds that came out of that egg, every time one of them struck a member of the Doom Patrol, they all disappeared and went somewhere, God knows where, so God knows where too. And that's how the episode basically ended. So that was it, and thank you for tuning in. I'm completely confused. I have no idea what's going on. The time travel aspect of it, I understand completely. I understand that two versions of Rita existed in the same timeline at one point. I understand the time travel aspect. I get all that. I don't understand this egg shit. I don't understand how Madame Rouge was able to bring the egg back to life. I don't understand Homeboy being in purgatory. I don't understand the bird reference. Like, this whole part of it is confusing to me. But I guess that's why you got to watch, because this is only episode 7. So we still got more episodes to go, and hopefully they will explain all this as we go along. Madame Rouge is basically full-blown villain now. I saw the coming attractions for next episode, and the Brotherhood of Evil is supposed to show back up again. The Brotherhood of Evil, who have been very disappointing so far, because they're not who I thought they would be, and this needs to be, if we get 15 episodes of Doom Patrol this season, the second half of this season needs to be about the Brotherhood of Evil actually being the Brotherhood of Evil, because I don't understand what these dudes are doing either. It's almost like they just keep plugging them in for comic relief. And if that's the case, I'm not very high on that. But we'll see what happens in the next episode. Check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Instagram. Share your comments, your questions, and your concerns in the comment section. Leave a like and or subscribe if you haven't already. Because like I said, we're doing all this DC TV. We got Young Justice coming up in the woodworks as well. And we will continue to roll. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. So for this episode, the Bird Patrol and the Doom Patrol, take care. And about this...